Hi there, my name is Jennifer Daddio and I am one of the youth service librarians here at PRPL. And today I want to talk to you about one of my favorite YA novels of all time. This is called When I Was the Greatest by Jason Reynolds. It's the story of a 15-year-old boy named Ali who lives in Brooklyn with his mom and his sister Jazz. Like most places, there are good things that happen in his neighborhood and bad things that happen in his neighborhood. But one of the best things about his neighborhood is that everyone knows each other and everyone looks out for each other. He has two best pals, Noodles and Needles. They're brothers, and they live across the street from him, and they don't have the greatest home life, so they tend to spend a lot of time either outside with Ali and their friends or at Ali's apartment with his family. Now, Noodles and Needles are not their real names. Noodles got his nickname because he loves ramen noodle soup. And Needles got his nickname because he has Tourettes Syndrome. And if you don't know what Tourettes Syndrome is, it's when somebody has a series of tics that they can't control. And that can manifest itself in many different ways. But for Needles, when he gets nervous or he gets upset or he gets stressed out, he starts swearing out loud, very loudly, and he has no control over this. But everybody in the neighborhood knows him, and it doesn't bother anybody. They don't take offense when he starts on one of these tears. But one day, he's outside, he's on Ali's stoop, and he's really tense about something, and he's got one of these tics going on, and he's swearing, and he's swearing, and he's swearing. And Ali's mother is upstairs, and she's a knitter, and she rummages around in a closet or a drawer, and she goes downstairs, and she hands him 2 knitting needles and a spool of yarn. And she says to him, "I think this might help to calm you down." She shows him a really basic stitch, and like a fish to water, he just takes to it, and he starts doing this one stitch over and over and over again, and it immediately calms him down. So after that, you never see Needles without his knitting needles and his yarn. And when he has knitted the entire spool of yarn, he just pulls it apart and he starts over again. So this is a story about Ali and Needles and Noodles. Now, there's another girl in the neighborhood. She lives a few blocks away. She lives on one of the nicer blocks. Her family owns a brownstone. She lives there with her brother, and she is gorgeous. Her name is Tasha, and Noodles is crazy about her, and every time he sees her, he's trying to sweet talk her and just try to engage her in some way. And she's nice, but she's clearly not interested. But she has an older brother who's famous for throwing these parties every weekend. His parents tend to spend a lot of time out of town, so he throws these parties every weekend. There's some crazy things that happen. They're kind of infamous. And most of the time, teenagers are not allowed at these parties. So one day, Tasha's walking down the street, and Ali is sitting on the stoop along with Needles and Noodles, and they see her coming. And Noodles is trying to sweet talk her, and he's saying, you know, you should get your brother to invite us to one of his parties. And she's like, yeah. And he says, no, really, we really want to come to one of these parties. So she kind of pauses for a second, and she says, I'll tell you what, you bring him. And she points to Needles, and she says, and you guys can come. Thinking that they're never going to bring Needles because he's a little socially awkward and he's got these tics. But 3 of them kind of look at each other, and they're like, a chance to go to one of these parties? And they're like, yeah, okay, fine. So they get themselves together, they go to this party, and something happens at this party that changes everything for each of them forever. I can't tell you what happens at that party because you need to read the book, but I promise you, you are going to love this book. I don't know anybody who has read this book that didn't love it. When I Was the Greatest by Jason Reynolds. He's one of the greatest YA authors alive right now, and you will not regret reading this. So I hope you enjoy it, and if you do read it, I hope you'll come back to me when the library reopens and let me know what you thought of it. Thanks so much. Take care. Bye-bye.